If you were watching the virtual 72nd Primetime Emmy Awards recently, you no doubt caught the debut of a new trailer for WandaVision, the first standalone series to be released in Phase 4 of the MCU. The studio offered a sneak peek last year during D23 Expo 2019, that's Disney's annual fan extravaganza. Lacking any actual footage, that teaser was just snippets of the Dick Van Dyke Show, interspersed with snippets of the Scarlet Witch and Vision from the various MCU films. At the time, well, everybody was a bit skeptical of the concept, but this new trailer is quite promising and gives everybody hope that Marvel can pull it off. WandaVision is meant to be a kind of sitcom, episodic superhero mashup, with Kate Dennings reprising her role as Darcy from the Thor films, alongside Randall Park reprising his Ant-Man and the Wasp role as FBI agent Jimmy Woo. And Catherine Hahn is going to play a noisy neighbor. Within the MCU timeline, it takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame, and its events will directly tie into Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness, currently slated for a 2022 release. Now, per the official description, WandaVision will follow the story of Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany's superhero characters, the Scarlet Witch and Vision. The series is a blend of classic TV and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in which Wanda Maximoff and Vision, two superpowered beings living idealized suburban lives, begin to suspect that everything is not as it seems. During last fall's New York Comic-Con, Tom King mentioned that the show would draw on the 2016 comic book limited series by King and Gabriel H. Walta, The Vision. In that storyline, Vision creates a wife and two children and settles into a seemingly suburban life in Washington, D.C., but things soon take a darker turn. There's also a comic storyline in which Wanda creates a world where everyone gets their heart's desire, so reality warping is certainly within her canon powers. The studio also released a few set photos earlier this year that confirmed rumors that WandaVision would feature the live-action debut of SWORD, the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. It's a subdivision of S.H.I.E.L.D. charged with handling alien threats to Earth. There's no official release date yet, but WandaVision is expected to debut on Disney Plus in December. Check this out. What kind of damage can an old, faulty TV set do? Well, apparently it can knock internet out for an entire town, and it did so for 18 months straight, every single day like clockwork at 7 a.m. An unnamed household in Aberhosan, Powys, was unaware that their old set would emit a signal which would interfere with the entire village's broadband internet. After 18 months, engineers began an investigation after a cable replacement program failed to fix the issue. The embarrassed household, well, promised to not use the television again. The village now has a stable broadband signal as well. Open Reach engineers were baffled by the continuous problems, and it wasn't until they used a monitoring device that they found that there was indeed a fault. The household would switch their TV on at 7 a.m. every morning, and electrical interference emitted by their secondhand television was affecting the broadband signal for the entire town. The owner, who does not want to be identified, I don't blame him, was mortified to find out that their old TV was the cause of the problem, according to Open Reach. They immediately agreed to switch it off and not use it again, said engineer Michael Jones. Engineers walked around the village with a monitor called a spectrum analyzer to try to find any electrical noise to help pinpoint the problem. At 7 a.m., like clockwork, it happened, said Mr. Jones. Our device picked up a large burst of electrical interference in the village. It turned out that at 7 a.m. every morning, the occupant would switch on their old TV, which would, in turn, knock out broadband for the entire village. The TV was found to be emitting a single high-level impulse noise, otherwise known as a shine, which causes electrical interference in other devices. Mr. Jones said the problem has not returned since the fault was identified. Bose seems convinced that people really like sunglasses with integrated speakers. Recently, the company introduced 3 new pairs of frames that follow up on the first 2 sets released back in 2018. 2 are fashion-forward. They're called the Tenor and Soprano. And the third set, Tempo, is much more sporty and specifically designed for outdoor use like biking, hiking, and running. That's the one that was spotted in a recent Federal Communications Commission filing. Sound quality has improved across the board in all 3, according to Bose, and the Tenor and Soprano have the tiniest, thinnest, most invisible Bose speakers ever, the company says. But let's get it out of the way. You can still tell that these aren't quite everyday sunglasses. The arms are still oversized, even with the new refinements. Here's what the Tenor frames look like when viewed from behind, but viewed head-on, well, they definitely look more stylish than their predecessors. All 3 pairs have polarized lenses that block out 99% of UV rays. Their wafer-thin Bose systems are discreetly embedded in each arm without extra parts, visible screws, seams, or perforations. Bose said in a press release recently that the electronics add less than 50 grams of weight to the glasses. Sound quality is clearer and richer than the previous frames too, according to the company. But the selling point remains the same. If you can't stand how earbuds feel or are just after a different experience, frames can give you a private audio bubble for your music, phone calls, and your Siri Google Assistant interactions while keeping you perfectly aware of everything happening around you. That latter part can also be seen as a downside since, by design, your tunes will be mixed with ambient sound at all times. The made-for-outside Tempo sunglasses produce the highest fidelity of the whole frames lineup, with a 22mm driver in each arm, good enough that you can still hear your music when cycling at 25 miles per hour, per Bose claims. The Tempo gets a standard USB-C port for charging its battery, which can last for about 8 hours of continuous playback. All 3 new frames have improved mic systems for voice calls. Bose says it has replaced the previous single mic with a dual beam forming array that shields what you're saying from wind, noise, and other nearby conversations. Tempo, Tenor, and Soprano all use what Bose describes as volume optimizing EQ, bringing out the whole frequency range at lower volumes while preventing distortion when you crank things up. You slide your finger across the right temple to adjust volume, and the frames also support tap gestures and have a multi-function button. Tenor and Soprano and the third set, Tempo, all cost the same at $249 and are available right now. Bose says that they're also all prescription ready.